Welcome back, Goobers 2, around the campfire. And tonight, we have a new guest joining us.
Say hello to Sebastian here.
Hello, I'm Sebastian.
Yeah, Sebastian currently lives, and let me check real quick. You live in River Hall, California. I believe you are a
Yes.
college? No, just about to get into college, I'm pretty sure. Am I correct?
Yes.
Lovely. So he will be joining us today as
Alex is out investigating.
yeah, Alex is busy, and we want to bring you this story. So I will be the one talking about it this time, as my dear brother has been investigating another case. We got a fan mail on the 21st of May. Chris sent us a message. He said, "Hey guys, love the show. I was wondering if there was any intention in covering the hands of Blackreach. I used to live near there, and people kept ending. What the fuck? What the fuck? I think he meant, and people kept dropping like flies. Fucking. Oh well. There's a ton of yeah. Christ. There's a sort of strange fanaticism to it by our local TC, I assume, true crime community. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Chris. Well, Chris, I spent a fucking week investigating this case, and it's the weirdest thing I've ever read into.
You say that every week.
I know, because we keep finding weirder shit. So,
One day we're going to do a case and you're going to be like, oh, that's it.
yeah, we can't go further than this. So, the Hands of Blackreach was in a little town in Ohio called Blackreach. Blackreach, Ohio. Happened around 2009. Let me read a newspaper excerpt. Horror hits the streets. Mrs. Maldry was found dead today on her front porch as a gruesome sight laid out for investigators. She was found dead of strangulation, the gruesome attacker taking her by surprise and choking her to death. Her right hand seems to have been sawn off with her own kitchen knife. Alongside this, her son, Brian, 13 years of age, has gone missing as well. Police Chief Anderson has reported to us that they are trying everything they can to find the missing child and the culprit who ended Mrs. Maldry's life. So, I found that was the first thing that for our sources today, we have 3 different sources. We have the local newspaper, Blackreach News, probably not too well of a source. We have The Life of the Hand, written by Mr. Maldry, who we'll talk about further along in this investigation. And lastly, we have the official records of the Blackreach police, as well as the private investigators, who, again, weird. So, finishing up with this, the newspaper says that her relatives have spent money and acquired a private investigator, which they named as Colin Stallworth, quoting that the trust of the Maldry family for local police is near non-existent, with large evidence proving their inadequacy. Sorry, stuttering. But, the basic gist of it that started this whole thing is that Mrs. Maldry, who's a lovely woman, from what I can tell, no one really despised her. Mrs. Maldry was found dead in her own home. Someone had come up behind her and strangled her to death, and then cut off her right hand.
Graphic.
Yes, and they didn't use a sharp weapon. They used a dull kitchen knife. Blood was spattered everywhere, and her son, Brian Maldry, was not in the house. People did not know where he was. So, of course, people were freaked out. The weird thing with this, though, is that investigators did not actually realize that her hand was missing, because her hand had been replaced. Someone had cut off the hand, taken it, and put a different person's hand to replace her. People didn't realize this until the second murder victim, who was Mr. Ford. Mr. Ford, a local businessman, he ran the local mechanic shop in town. He was found in his own shop, dead by 18 stab wounds. And, yeah, 18 stab wounds. Police investigators stated that they actually, because of how the house was, the mechanic shop was underneath their main living abode. He was found trying to crawl out of the garage. There was 3 different knives holding him down. Seemingly just someone went ape shit. Just kept stabbing into him as he tried to crawl away. They found his 16-year-old daughter, Sandra Ford, locked inside her own bedroom. She was found nearly catatonic, with her right hand missing. Not only did not find her hand in the room, but underneath her bed laid a box, bloodied. There's pictures if you want to find them online, but this bloody box, like a cardboard box drenched in blood. Inside are multiple hands. Mrs. Maldre's hand, her father's hand, and 2 other hands that people did not identify at the time of at the scene of the crime at the time. So at this point, we have another local excerpt where people were advised to stay in their homes. There was a local curfew. People online were starting to comment about it. And around this time, I think we need to talk about our main... I don't want to call him... I don't know exactly how to call him, but Colin Stallworth is someone we need to bring up before we go any further. Because he's such an interesting figure. And this would be a mysterious but pretty unexpected case, if not for his arrival. Colin Stallworth, who seemed to be at the time of the Blackfeet case, only 14 years old.
Question.
Yes?
So, he was hired by the family of the original murder.
Yes.
14-year-old.
Yes.
They gave him money. Well, from what I can tell, he did have other people with him. It was just he seemed to, for some fucking reason, be the guy. Oh, so, it's not just this 14-year-old rolling around.
No.
He actually came with company.
Yeah,
when you say he led the investigation...
He led the investigation.
Okay, but there were other investigators.
There were other people.
That were on his team.
He was the only person labeled as an investigator. I don't even know who the people he came with were. I'm
asking you, is he getting the money?
I'm
gonna butcher her name. Daldry?
Maldry.
Is she looking at this 14-year-old kid and being like, you're the only way that my sister can find justice, and he's like,
well, they didn't
angst.
We're gonna get into that.
Okay, that's fine.
We have to talk about him before the way he was hired.
I care a lot about how he was hired.
Oh, I know. It's a very interesting thing. First off, he has no public records before 1992. I can't find a birth certificate. I can't find fucking anything. I don't know who not 1992, 1998. Sorry.
Well, maybe that's why you're not finding anything.
No, but like
I'm just kidding.
1998, no birth records, no place where he was fucking born. This kid just showed up after 1998. He headed the case at the age of 14, and there has been multiple other cases where he was involved and weird shit happened. But he was the local head of a I don't fucking hate that I have to say this. The quote-unquote Monster Hunter Society.
Oh, I want to be part of the Monster Hunter Society.
They have a Facebook.
Oh.
They have Facebook and forums where you can personally sign up. And at this, I went to check it a while back while I was investigating. They have forums and shit. Colin Stallworth has a fucking blog, and I'll figure out where the fuck it is. I wasn't able to find it, but I know from sources that he has a fucking blog. And it just blows my mind. So, the Maldry family went to the Monster Hunter MHS. I'm calling them the MHS. I'm not calling them...
Everything sounds more official as an acronym.
Yeah. I don't know why the fuck someone named them... So it just seemed to be a group of people who, from private investigators to quote-unquote monster hunters, you pay them a fee, they'll come over and they'll it just seems like a bullshit paranormal investigator group of people. But Colin Stallworth, who was a 14-year-old boy who got a shitload of press when he showed up, because... It was a public thing of the family saying, we have hired private investigators. And this 14-year-old fucking kid shows up as the investigator.
As the only investigator.
As the only investigator! Yes! It makes no sense.
Fishy.
It's fishy as fuck, yes, Sebastian. But...
Okay, well, see, this is the part that I struggle with, right? Is the fact that this boy is 14 and he had an ad. What was his ad? Monster Hunter in the paper. And she said, "Oh, I wonder who could find the death of my..." Because he's not like a good... Like, he was
not hired specifically. He was sent out.
So wait, they contacted the investigation firm. The investigation firm sends a 14-year-old kid who is, by all means, occupation is... Monster Hunter. When he fills out his taxes for the U.S. government, he has to put Monster Hunter.
Well, I think he puts private investigator, but
okay. I'm just saying, so he went out by himself with no partner.
Like, not from what records show.
Okay.
Which is weird as shit, but okay. I know he had people, parents or something, or maybe just chaperones, but. Because he was being driven around places.
That's what I'm saying. So he has to have some support from the agency.
Yeah.
Because I see it being difficult that, like...
Oh, yeah, it wasn't just him showing up on the train.
Okay, that's what I asked.
It was just that he was the only person labeled as an investigator.
Okay.
Everybody
like on the books.
Yeah. Like, obviously, it could have been, like, the other people doing the real work, but... I don't know what... Out of everything, this is one of the weird things that kind of connects me, is why the fuck did they hire this kid? And talking about the person who hired this kid, Mr. Maldry. There's a couple other murders, but I want to bring up Maldry first. Mr. Maldry is a strange figure because he disappeared from the Maldry family. He was out of Black Creek. No one knew where the fuck he went. He went, like, dead silence. No contact for a good 10-15 years from what I can hear from family experts and the book. Shows up right as she dies. Like, shows up the day after. And the first thing he does is hire this fucking kid.
So, absentee father hires Monster Hunter.
Yes.
Okay.
Strange, right? Strange. So, we haven't gotten to the weird shit yet, though. Let's talk now Now, about Mrs. and Mr. Lind. At 12:30 at night, I think it was January 2nd. I'd have to recheck the book. But 30 minutes after midnight, a police found that the entirety of the Lind's house was set ablaze. Just one, like, it was almost as if someone had covered most of the house with accelerant.
Well, what did the firefighter report say?
Well, the firefighter report showed that the entire house had been just covered in gasoline.
Okay, so it was covered in accelerant.
It was awesome, yes. And when they came inside, they found Mrs. and Mr. Lin. Give me a sec. I had to read it. It was not fun. Police, they found them. Their body,
burned alive?
Not only burned alive, but cut open.
Oh, that's gross.
Yes, I saw some pictures and but their right and left hands, the ones that they were laid together on their master bed, they were tied down using ropes, covered in gasoline. The hands that they had, their hands next to each other holding hands, and the hands that were out to the bed were just cut off and replaced. And the strange.
So who are these other hands? So this is my question, right?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
Because there's some weird shit there. But the weird thing is, the hands that were put on these people, they had very little bone damage to it.
So it's kind of as if they set fire to the whole house and came back and it attached.
Yeah, and attached these hands.
But I thought the police showed up while the house was ablaze.
Yes.
Okay.
But the thing is, at that time, the fire department was on the other side of town, so it took a good bit of time. The house at the top had been.
I understand that, but so like
it's been burned. When I probably said it incorrectly. I said it was like it was from nothing to. It was more akin to the house was fully burning, but it wasn't burnt down. But with the amount of accelerant, that house burned very quickly.
Okay.
So there was a police officer on the scene. There was Jackson Tread, who was a local police officer, who we'll talk about. But Mrs. Mr. Lin's children, Angela and Cooper Lin, were missing. Just gone. Mr. Tread, the police officer on duty, said that he saw two figures run into the forest as the house was like dying down a little bit. And he tried to chase after them, but got lost because the house had been set right next to a local forest. Because Blackreach is a very wooded area.
Okay. A local forest. It had been placed next to a local forest, or had the local forest been placed next to the house? I'm just being an asshole.
You're being an asshole.
You keep going.
So, the last quote-unquote victim was Mr. Tread himself, who was the only survivor of these attacks. He had, from police reports and from what I can tell, from the book that was written, he found that while he was getting in his car, one day, he was going to head to the station where he found a group of masked children. It was like bunny masks almost was what he quoted, weirdly enough, no eye hole, no mouthpiece, just a colored in mask with eyes and like a mouth.
Okay.
That he said that these kids came up, he was getting his car, these kids came out of like around his house from the back, came up to him as he was getting into his car and tried to drag him out of his car.
It went.
The freaking.
Yeah, it was a group of 5 kids. What, Sebastian?
I said that 14-year-old fucker has to be related to that somehow.
Oh yeah.
Like,
So, let
he
me.
just doesn't show up out of nowhere and then freaking start investigating shit. Like, he, it's like a group of kids. He has to be connected to that.
Well, we'll talk about. But Tread, these kids start trying to pull him out of his car. He gets his pistol. He shoots. He shoots
His
one of
pistol?
these kids. Yes, he's a police officer.
Okay. Jackson Tread?
Yeah, Jackson Tread is
The
a
one
police
who
officer.
already chased into the woods.
He chased.
No, I know. So then he's just chilling in his car and a bunch of hoodlums
No,
attack
this is
him.
after.
I know, but like months later, children are attacking him in his car.
It was about 2 weeks later.
Okay.
Sorry for not clarifying. It was about 2 weeks later from that fire incident, and he was getting into his car. He was heading to walk, as I stated, where these kids came up to his car and tried pulling him out. He let out a single round. He hit one of the boys of the group in the shoulder, and they ran. DNA investigate.
And is he on paid suspension? He did shoot a child. No, I just want to know what happened after he admitted to shooting a child.
He made a report. Like, people didn't know what to think of it. He was temporarily suspended, but it was he was
So they never found the body.
Well, it was a graze. It wasn't like he shot this kid in the.
So you're telling me that Jackson Tread has been murdering these people, cutting their hands off, and then shooting their children?
No.
And then all the kids realized that he was coming for them, so they tried to kill him, and then he shot at them again.
Well, the fun fact: the blood that was left at the scene tested was Brian Maldry, Mrs. Maldry's son. So, now that we've gone through all of the quote-unquote events of the Black Reach, we need to talk about the hands. And this is why we're going to be covering this investigation. I'm sorry if I'm rambling a little bit. Trying to get my things together because this is the weird part of the story. DNA testing on the hands showed that some of the hands on these bodies were from people who were either from people who were not dead yet at the time of the victim's death. Mrs. Maldry had Mr. Lynn's hand. And people don't exactly know. This is a weird phenomena where these people have each other's hands, supposedly. And some of them are kept in really good conditions. Mr. Ford was only killed a day after. Mrs. Maldry and Mr. Ford were killed about 2-3 days of each other. Mrs. Lynn was killed about a week afterwards, and the Tread assault was 2 weeks after that. These hands had to have been stored somewhere, or we don't exactly know how Mrs. Maldry's got Mr. Ford's hand. Some believe that it was switched during transport, before the DNA analyst got in to test the hands.
Are you saying like someone's in the morgue switching hands out?
Yeah, that's one of the theories. Other people think paranormal or some shit.
Bruh.
Yes?
This is sounding like so fishy, like that 14-year-old fucker.
Oh, yes.
I don't know.
The Colin, yes. So, Colin Stallworth, you're very right about this. He's a very fishy individual. He spent 3 weeks investigating this case. After the assault on Mr. Tread...
He has to have connections. He's, like, so deep into this. Like, there's someone else. He has to have a team put together for this.
Yeah.
after the assault on Mr. Tread, um, eyewitnesses saw them go into the forest. Uh, Mr. Collins and his team with with a pistol and a rifle. So, him and the people who we don't know if these were local, we don't know if it was his team, went into the forest and left the forest 4 hours later. And after that point, there were no more attacks on the Blackreach. There were no more hands in Blackreach. And the police reports have not been well covered. It was suspected that he had been a part of this group. Is one of the theories. The other theory is that he found and killed all of the children. The third theory is that the assault on Mr. Tread was a lie, and Mr. Tread was the one who was causing all of these incidents, and he was just covering his own ass. And I want to say that God, brain freeze. I want to say that investigators went into the forest after the MSS crew had went in there, supposedly cleared it and left. They found rifle casings and pistol casings, spent casings. They found a trail of blood leading into a local creek. And past that, they found no evidence that anyone was there. It was just, they walked into a way, they found some blood that they tested and could not find a match for. It was not one of the kids that led into the stream and disappeared, and a couple of rounds. And then they left. They didn't send anything. They didn't talk to anyone. They just disappeared. They didn't leave contact information, and the society that was hired by them refuses to give investigators any sort of way to contact Mr. Collins.
Fuck. So
yes.
You go ahead.
I just want to kind of just bring up the last couple of things. This was all in the span of 3 weeks. The 3 theories that I have seen, before I let you guys talk about what you think happened, as stated lastly, this is real. Some weird child kind of group came together, psychopaths, came together, made a group, and started killing their parents, and they somehow kept the bodies, the hands or something. Perhaps jealousy, perhaps because Blackreach is a very conservative sort of neighborhood. Could be some sort of rebellion or some shit. The second thing is that some people believed that this could have been some sort of weird cult activity. Of course, fringes of the internet, people think everything's a cult or some shit. But people believe that the actions that happened, they believe that these kids were being manipulated by something or someone to do these acts. Or lastly, this is a serial kill. The Mr. Tread, Jackson Tread, is a serial killer, and that he's been covering his tracks and making this seem like a weird case so that people would rather look at the missing children than himself, because he's the only man to have seen these kids after they disappear.
I feel like
Pass,
it's
Sandra.
something between the Colin kid and the dude that you just mentioned. Maybe he's manipulating them, or like they're trying to cover up something and he's paying for something for them. But it feels like those two are connected in some way.
What do you feel, John?
Well, my theory has to go with something that we didn't talk about. But it is something that we talked about on the podcast before, is spontaneous psychopathy amongst minors. So what we're not looking at is, I know it's a few years before the phenomenon's taken place, like officially and been, entered in as a true phenomenon.
Yeah, true phenomenon.
But it wouldn't be crazy to think that there, and I'll explain for Sebastian and some of the other listeners what that is it's when we're finding that children in society are developing psychopathic tendencies.
Yeah.
And it leads to them killing animals, acts of cruelty, things like school shootings, and even like parental murders and serial killer behavior. So, but what I'm saying, because almost all the parents are victims and all the children are missing, this could be just one of the first child outbreaks of, sudden psychopathy.
Sudden
Or what's the? Oh man, I'm not gonna get the name right because I'm tired today. But sudden onset psychopathy. And so that could be theory one that I have. It's just the fact that these kids, starting with maybe one of them or two of them, they all went to the same schools. They were all decently the same age. Maybe they all got together one day after school and were like, "Yo, you want to fucking kill our parents?"
Yeah, they all were around the age to be in middle. Some of them were in high, some of them were in middle, but it was a combined
But
school.
the Lynn children were siblings.
They were.
And they both hit in middle and high school. So they could be a connecting point. Second thing, I don't really care about the Monster Hunter kid. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not saying that there's not something weird there. I'm just saying that the fact that, it's not the first time that we've seen some weird people in our cases.
Yeah, I don't think the Monster Hunter kid is because he is in other cases, and we'll talk about those maybe at some point. Because the reason I wanted to talk about him now and bring him up, because he does get brought up again.
Jason Stallworth.
Jason
Stallworth? Did I say it right?
No, Colin Stallworth.
Colin Stallworth, that's right. Yeah. Jason Treads.
Jackson Treads.
Oh man. Sorry, I'm thinking about I'm researching something too. So names are all over the fucking place. But Colin Stallworth, the Monster Hunter Society. It's an interesting thing that we might. I wonder if at some point maybe we should perhaps look at the group.
I want to talk about them someday. I was not able to put it in the episode, but they have such weird shit. I don't know if they're fucking satirical or if they're legitimately a bunch of people, but they have some weird shit, and there's some really small cases that don't deserve an episode, other than the fact that they are related to the Monster Hunter Society, that I really want to talk about.
So the most interesting thing about the case, though, is the hands are creepy. The cutting and the switching of the hands.
Something
could be a sign.
Well, the thing is, we still don't understand how the fuck these hands got switched. We don't understand.
Or the hands in the fire, how they're unburned.
They're completely fine, and how.
So, did anybody ever find these children?
Well, these kids, no. The only child who seemed to have survived is Sandra Ford, and her right hand has been removed. She's in a psychiatric hospital, and the weird thing about that is, not only she did an interview for the book, and something I didn't want to bring up because it seemed inconsequential is that she started rambling about a mother. And, Sandra Ford, her mother died in childbirth, but she talked about something about the Great Mother. And it was a bunch of ramblings and stuttering, basically incomprehensible, but it was the one thing that the book writer, who was Mr. Maldray, could identify, that she kept talking about the Great Mother.
Wait, Mr. Maldray
Is the man who wrote the book that we are using.
And he also hired a child investigator, and he went and met Linda Ford in the mental hospital.
Yes.
Mr. Maldray. And he was unknown.
Well...
Let's just write his name down.
Oh, I already wrote his name down.
Okay.
There's another case we might eventually get to that involves him.
Mr. Maldray. Well, Sebastian, you got any more theories on, killer kids and the police officer?
I don't know. Because it's a lot. There's a lot of things to consider, and everyone can be influenced by anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be just, like, kids going fucking nuts. Because if they went fucking nuts, it would just be a one and done thing, and they'd fucking realize it was a mistake. But it's
I think
like,
violent...
It's a reoccurring thing with the hands, and...
I will say that psychopathy doesn't have switching hands. Like, the cases of it, but, I mean, also murdering your parents is a symptom.
Like...
But, okay, like, think of the Colin kid. He comes out of nowhere, fucking monster hunter person. So what if he's influencing the kids to do this weird hand cutting up shit? And it's like the old man maybe knows the Colin kid as well. So they're all like working together. Or they're covering up something.
Maybe.
What is happening in Blackreach?
Blackreach. The hands of Blackreach.
The hands of Blackreach.
But the weird, like,
what else can I say wrong today?
Everything, John. Don't die.
Kids are like very impressionable. So if there's like this monster, like the coolest kid on the block at the moment.
Like the weird thing,
the Monster Hunter Kid.
The Monster Hunter Kid. Jeez.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I just keep on thinking of just this kid showing up. He's wearing fucking glasses. He's got a big ass backpack. In his backpack, he's got like a baseball bat that says Monster Slayer on it.
No, he had a pistol, Coy. He had a fucking pistol.
Alright, so then he's like, yo, you want to see my gun? And then he like does some like flippy tricks with it. And then he's like, yeah, that's right, I'm a monster hunter.
I bet he's one of those kids who puts a bayonet on his pistol.
Oh my god.
But,
he probably like he carries a pack of matches and lights them. He just stares at it. This is like my inner youth as he watches the flame go out.
Like, we have the surviving victims. We have Sandra, who's the missing piece. If she was not catatonic and crazy as shit, we might have more answers. Because her hand was cut off. No one replaced her hand. It was just stolen. And each time the hand was cut off, it was with a different method.
The killing method was different, too, with each.
Yeah.
Interesting. You know, this is the second surviving female victim that is in a psych ward. So that's our second one.
Oh, Christ. First the demon culprit, and now Monster Hunter Kid.
What are we going to find next week?
What are we going to find?
I do know what we're going to find. Wait.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo. We're going to find Shaggy in one of these fucking cases? Please.
Oh, shit.
What?
Robert Klein just died.
You're fucking with me.
I'm not fucking with you.
No, you're fucking with me. Don't fucking say Robert Klein died.
No, Robert Klein was just found murdered.
Huh.
Alright, we're gonna have to... We're gonna have to end the episode here. We're gonna have to... I gotta go look into this.
You gotta go look. I'll,
Holy fuck.
Fucking... Yeah, Sebastian, if you don't know, Robert Klein was in a first case, Which, if you, I don't fucking know. Jesus Christ.
I was not told about it.
Yeah, you won't. We'll talk about it after. But yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for listening. We hope you have a wonderful night. Jesus Christ.